talks about Bach and Beethoven, and I asked him, I said, how do you do it? What is it about? He goes, well, let's just start with the notes. Now, if you listen, and then he had me listen to Bach and Beethoven, and he said, now listen, there's the note. Now listen to the note between the notes. Now, fighting is all about rhythm. And so if you have a rhythm, ba, 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 you want to break the rhythm of the opponent and get him in between the rhythm, right? So it's the note between the notes. And then we started to learn how to put this music into his fighting style.
There's a lot of structure stuff,
yeah.
Like Bach does cannons, like we do combinations, and he flips them upside down. Like if you do a Kimura on top, which is an arm lock on top, you do that same arm lock underneath, which is like a mirror cannon. There's so much stuff that's, like I said, is the same between. And not just that, causality and philosophy. If you study Hume, that's kind of what he's talking about right there, establishing a pattern and breaking it. And every art, or kind of every thing that you need a skill set for, these underlying principles. So those other arts can directly, not like, oh, become the water or anything like that, that's cliche, but actually structurally, oh, this fits here like this does this. We're going to look at a few of the individual martial arts styles that make up mixed martial arts. So we've mixed these all together, and there's a lot of kind of, if you would say, lines that get blurred. But the basic styles that you use for stand-up is American kickboxing, which is a very kind of, it's a style that does a lot of, it has its roots in the 1980s and the PKA kind of generation, where you would do a lot of kind of taekwondo, karate-esque kicks. Your boxing was okay, but you stood kind of really tall. That traditional boxing that everybody's familiar with, and so if you did PKA stance, you would have the long pants, and you do kind of up here, and there's a lot of these kind of kicks and spinning back kicks and all of this good stuff. You have traditional boxing, which has your weight much more forward, depending on what style of a boxer you are, but your weight is much more forward on this leg, and that's where you're using your punches a lot more, you're acquiring angles, you're using a lot of head movement coming up and down, and really just using your hands. You have Muay Thai kickboxing, which is another form of kickboxing, and that's where your weight's kind of on your back leg. You're very bouncy on your front leg. Your hands are high. Your boxing is decent, but it's not. You don't do nearly the head movements because the kicks coming up kind of prevent a lot of dipping and rolling. So, and you have a lot of powerful front kicks, a lot of powerful leg kicks, a lot of elbows, and you work what's called the Thai plum position, which is where you're locked in here, and you're using a lot of knees and a lot of elbows from inside here. In addition to the Muay Thai, the kind of American kickboxing, and the boxing, you have a myriad of other styles that make little contributions. Karate makes, with their kicks, make little contributions. Sabat, with the fanciness. There's a lot of different martial arts that contribute in there, but those are the main ones. One interesting thing with the movie and the fighting styles within the movie are he creates openings on himself, and you're able to kind of take advantage of that, jump on that opening, and reverse the fight. And that is a great kind of exemplification of what it means to be a martial artist. For little guys like me, that I wouldn't have a hope of what to take out a big giant guy. But after my martial arts training, I would have a much better chance, because I would be able to, as this guy's trying to ragdoll me around, I'd be able to stay calm, look for my openings, create my own openings by being aggressive. And that's really what the martial arts can give you. So standing, you have that, the Thai plum already. But once you start locking up, it's a lot of kind of new, I wouldn't say new, rediscovered, if you will. From like an under-over, you're doing a lot of traditional wrestling. You're doing Greco, collegiate, freestyle, they all have a kind of application. Because sometimes you're going down to the leg, sometimes you're staying up. And also, of course, judo and standing jiu-jitsu. Doing all of your throws and your fit-ins, this is all judo stuff mixed with the kind of traditional wrestling that everybody grows up doing if you're a wrestler. In addition to that, though, now you have the strike. So now, something that's fairly new is learning how and where to strike, how to set up structures to strike within the parameters of that wrestling. So starting the wrestling and then switching into Muay Thai plum positions and different strikes to different takedowns. That's a very kind of new addition to wrestling. And then once you get the wrestling to the ground, so if you were to do a takedown, and once you get this wrestling to the ground, Now we're in the realm of jiu-jitsu. And jiu-jitsu itself, especially Brazilian jiu-jitsu, is one thing that really revolutionized mixed martial arts. Arguably one of the biggest facets of anybody's game is having a very, very good jiu-jitsu game. If you don't have a good jiu-jitsu game, you're going to be in some trouble, at least learning how to get up. So the different positions from jiu-jitsu, the basic guard, the basic half guard, side mount, full mount, all of these positions, and the same thing on the back, those all had a very, very large impact. And then again, with these traditional jiu-jitsu techniques, learning the ground and pound structures, understanding how, if you're in a side mount, to keep your head down so that they can't bring their arm around to push your face away, going back down, so that you can start driving elbows, combining this, and then when she stops your elbows, bringing your jiu-jitsu back into play, and able to continue the elbows, or look for submission hold at that point. All of those things kind of mix together to make modern mixed martial arts what it is. If you're doing street stuff, you just add throwing strikes and bites, all that good stuff, but it's the same basic framework. And that's a huge overview. There's a lot of other ifs, ands, and buts, but that's kind of the overview of what we do. Combining all of these together, knowing when to mix your kickboxing with your wrestling, with your ground and pound, with your jiu-jitsu, once you have acquired a very good basic foundation, is what makes artists artists. What you have to remember about MMA is it has a martial arts background, meaning that there's educated, most of my guys have college degrees, most of my guys are very educated. What I would encourage you to do is not to prejudge and to understand that there is beauty in places that you might not initially think there is beauty in. And the more you understand about something, the more beautiful it becomes. When you first watch football, the thing with martial arts, with combat, is once you understand what's happening, then it gets really interesting, because you can see the pieces fitting together, and they're clustering on this side, and they're posting and wheeling flanks on that side, and all of a sudden, this whole beautiful world opens up to you. Same thing when you learn about art. You know, if you just look at a painting with just a bunch of colors on there, and you don't understand what the intention was, why it was done this way, at what time it was done, it's kind of uninteresting. But when you say, oh, this is a Dadaist painting, and so you see them constantly kind of helping each other out. And that makes everybody better. We have a cooperative, competitive dynamic, and those have to stay in balance. If you get too much cooperation or too much competitiveness, you're going to be out of balance. But when you have those things on kind of an even keel, that's when you're going to get the best success. And so I constantly have to think of new moves, watch tape, and see what other people are doing so that I have my guys prepared against it. It's a complete and utter arms race. And so just making sure that I can do that was kind of imprinted on me early on, because I had to figure it all out in the first place. So I don't really have any formal training. I mean, you know, Mike Winklejohn, my mentor, helped me out here and there with the kickboxing and with a lot of life stuff. But other than that, you know, I did little traditional martial arts here and there, but like the core of what I did is pretty much self-taught.
The Brendan character, who in every fight is always losing. He's losing in every fight. And again, this came from what I've learned, what we've learned from Greg and the guys, is that if you have the mind, if you're trained in your mind to not break down and let the other fighter impose their will on you, then in this sport, in MMA, you can turn the fight around at any time.